Ian. I've come home. It's wonderful to be here. Now, let me take a leaf from Ian's notebook and say, bonjour tout le monde. Bonjour tout le monde. As you know, or some of you know, I had the delight to be the Dean of Law at Western from 1974 to 79. And our fifth daughter was born here. And as we stepped off the plane yesterday morning here, so many wonderful memories came back, and they have just been flooding me ever since. But I have to relate my story of grandchildren. I say all the important things in life I've learned from my children, and now I'm learning from the grandchildren. So Ian, just like your conversation from your 8-year-old, here's a note I got just a few minutes ago from our number one daughter, Debbie, called Tea-isms. Tea is her 6-year-old daughter adopted from Colombia, and Em is the older sister adopted from the same orphanage who's 10. So Debbie says to me, a couple conversations from this evening. Exiting Em and Tea's school, Tea says, Mom is exercising a lot so she can have the perfect body. I responded, no Tea, I'm not seeking the perfect body. My goal is to make my muffin top look more like a homemade muffin top rather than a Tim Hortons one. Later this evening, on our way to pick up Em at swimming, Tea asks, now Tea does gymnastics, age 6. Mom, would a bar love me? Mom, huh? Tea, would a bar love me? Mom, what do you mean a bar? Tea, like a bar, you know, that you hang from. Mom, Tea, bars don't have feelings, they can't love people. Tea, oh, you mean because they don't have hearts? Mom, yes, because they don't have hearts. Tea, well, what if they did have hearts? Who do you think a bar would love? Mom, well, I imagine a bar would love another bar. Tea, do you think the bar would love me too? Wonderful message of love. You know, when I think of this community, I actually think of love. Our family had so much love here, it was just unbelievable. We came, I was a really young guy and really green, and we were a bit overwhelmed, but we just found that you didn't even have to reach out. The arms were around the shoulders, and there's so many. I'll just tell you 2 or 3 stories to illustrate how good London was for us and what great memories we have. Our fifth daughter, Sam, was born here, and at about 6 months of pregnancy, Marty Robinson was looking after my wife. As my wife said, she had 5 different obstetricians in 5 different places in 7 years. That's quite a test. And Marty was wonderful. He discovered that she had placenta insufficiency, which essentially meant the placenta was not giving full nourishment to the baby. It was giving just enough, but Marty's concern was that when that stopped, then the baby had to be delivered within 48 hours or the baby would die. So Marty came to our home every morning, put my wife on bed rest for 3 months, came to our home every morning at about 7 o'clock to take the urine sample, which he would take down to his office, including Saturdays and Sundays, to test whether it was showing that the placenta was still functioning, because he knew when it stopped functioning, then he had to bring her in for a cesarean. And that baby was born at full term, did a PhD on how the mind learns, and is now working on helping people with learning disabilities. So that's a Marty Robinson victory. And others. Gene Kennedy was our next door neighbor. Many of you remember Gene, Jack, that remarkable orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Nees, as we call him. Gene became godmother to Sam, very close to us. And Gene was kind of, she was like an aunt and a member of the family, and just a whole lot of wisdom on one. But Jean was very old style, and I guess we were a little modern. And she called my wife over after we'd been here about 3 months for tea, and she said, we're so delighted to have you in the neighborhood, and we're so delighted to have you in London, but I just want to caution you that there's one thing that's not working very well. And my wife said, well, what is that? She said, your husband, who is the Dean of Law, and after all, it's an important position here, is frequently seen hanging diapers on the line. And my wife said, and so he should. And Jean said, but the neighbors are twittering about that. And she said, you let the neighbors twitter because he's the reason he's hanging diapers on the line. So Jean, as Cal and Dick and Bill and others will know, was an indefatigable person. She was not going to be stopped by that particular recalcitrance, so she called me over to tea. And she said, the neighbors are twittering about you hanging diapers in line. So in those days, I was doing a lot of labor arbitration and conciliation, always looking for the middle way. So the deal I struck with Jean is I would not be seen hanging diapers on the line during the daytime. So I did my hanging whether before dawn or after dawn. And finally, I was reminiscing with Lorraine Ivy Shuttleworth last night about how much we loved our neighborhood. And my job, 5 children in 7 years, bear in mind, was when I'd walk home from the university or bike home from the university, and I'd load up 5 kids and 2 dogs in our station wagon, and we'd go down to magnificent Gibbons Park and try to exhaust the kids. And the instructions I would be given when I left was, and come home with 5 kids and 2 dogs. And I almost always did, except one day I came home with not all the same 5 kids. And another day I came home with 6. And got back there pretty quickly. Well, as you can see, for me this is an absolute joyous occasion, and from the moment we stepped off the plane, it's just in that way. We had an absolutely marvelous experience in my sister's place in the last hour and a half, an extraordinary London creation. And I'm not quite sure what the media will pick up, but some of the folks that travel with me are a little embarrassed about me because we left there belting out some choruses of Johnny Cash, I'll Walk the Line. So look at your evening news and see what they do. I should also say, picking up where Ian left off and where Martha left off, as patron of the Community Foundation of Canada, I'm just thrilled to have a chance to speak with so many of you who care so much about your community and are so central to the Community Foundation movement and have been such inspiring influences here. Your city's Community Foundation is just so vital and so critical in our effort as Canadians to make our country a smarter, more caring place in which to live, work, and raise our families, a place of keener minds and kinder hearts. Le jour de mon installation comme gouverneur général, il y a 2 ans et demi, j'ai expliqué que je considérais mes nouvelles fonctions comme une période de devoir et que Sharon et moi continuons d'y répondre en rapprochant les Canadiens de tous les âges et les horizons afin de créer une nation plus avertie et gagnante, a nation smarter and more caring. Une telle nation agit dans 3 volets distincts. Elle défend les enfants et les familles, elle favorise l'apprentissage et l'innovation, et elle encourage les citoyens à devenir des bénévoles et des philanthropes. So 3 pillars in a smart and caring nation: family and children, learning and innovation, and philanthropy and volunteerism. Sharon and I have spent the last 31 months traveling to dozens of communities, large and small, across Canada, encouraging citizens to make the characteristics of smart and caring increasingly real and illuminating in their neighborhoods, towns, and cities. The central function of this role of Governor General is to connect, honor, and inspire Canadians by sharing the stories of each community in its own way, attempting to lift others up. And I especially thank Community Foundations of Canada for very special work in bringing this message into the hearts and minds of people across our vast and diverse land to create keener minds and kinder hearts. Through the Smart and Caring Communities Initiative, Community Foundations of Canada has set out to achieve 2 goals. 1, to have every city in our country served by a foundation in time to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Confederation in 2017. We have 200 now, we have another 60 or 70 to go, Ian. Is that a reasonable approximation? So that's our goal. And second, to set up a network of smart and community funds within community foundations across Canada to enable these foundations to focus sharply on specific actions that make our hometown smarter and more caring. I'm thrilled to learn that at last count, 30 such funds are up and running, and of course, London, which always leads, is one of them. You're doing so through your community fund, more than 200 endowment funds, and specific smart and caring programs such as your Youth and Philanthropy Initiative. I should say this is a trite observation, but it has profound implications. Philanthropy is changing quickly And we have an exciting opportunity to nurture a new generation of philanthropists in communities throughout our country. We in Canada have enjoyed uncommon success in creating and strengthening political and economic institutions that are inclusive. And I love that phrase. One of the books that I cherish, I have this very unfortunate habit. People like Cal will shudder when they hear me say this. I read a lot. I love reading. And when I have a book with some new ideas, I buy a dozen copies and I distribute it to my colleagues. It used to be the deans at McGill and Waterloo, and these poor people would shake and say, "Sure as God, you're delivering apples. If you ask me a question about it next week, so I'm going to read it." It's a book by James Taylor, another colleague at MIT. Taylor's at Harvard, and it's a product of the Canadian Institute for Advanced Research, a global economics program. And the title is "Why Nations Fail," or "Why Communities Fail." And the thesis is not Jared Diamond's grand thesis that it has to do with environment replaced. The nations that thrive, says Robinson, are those that are inclusive in their politics and in their economics. And those that begin to fail are extractive in their politics and their economics. About a month and a half ago, Chancellor Merkel was with us, Rita Hall, and we were having a lovely conversation. I think she's a little like me. She was a professor for a period of time. We were like a couple of school kids, because I was grilling her about whether the European Union, when the Nobel Prize in Peace for 60 years of peace in Europe, where is it going next? And then she was grilling me on how this crazy country, Canada, can work with this diversity. How do you make that work? And we were very respectful of one another, that I'd have my 10 minutes of cross-examination, and then she'd have her 10 minutes of cross-examination. Her English is quite good. And when I was commenting upon out of diversity comes strength and richness in Canada, I quoted Taylor about nations that are inclusive in their politics and their economic strive, and those that fail are extractive. And I said, it's not inclusive and exclusive, which would be a 180-degree relationship. Extractive is more 135-degree relationship. And then she turned to her interpreter and the 4 or 5 German ministers with her, and they began doing the synonyms for extractive to fix it. And it was wonderful to hear the different words to explore that nuance of how you create inclusive communities and when you suffer from extractive communities. Our country's inclusiveness enables us to experience true freedom and to enjoy lives that are rewarding, fulfilling, and meaningful. Conversely, countries fail when their political and economic institutions are extractive because they concentrate power and opportunity in the hands of the few. Philanthropy in Canada is an essential expression of our country's inclusiveness. Throughout our history, we Canadians have been free to make the most of our lives through learning and hard work and sacrifice. At the same time, we are encouraged to use our successes to ensure others profit from the same opportunities we've enjoyed. By tying together economic opportunity and equality of opportunity, philanthropy has served and continues to serve as a bulwark of the Canadian way of life. John Gardner posed that question: can we have equality of opportunity and excellence too? To see those not as mutually contrasting objectives, but to mutually reinforcing objectives. Philanthropy also has a replenishing and a revitalizing effect. As Zoltan Axe writes in Why Philanthropy Matters, philanthropy dismantles the accumulated wealth tied to the past and uses it to lay the groundwork for new cycles of learning, innovation, and enterprise today and in the future. Another special aspect of philanthropy is that it places some onus on beneficiaries to give something of themselves. And it's usually more than a check. Their time, energy, and dedication in response to the help they received. In this way, philanthropy is different from charity, which requires no such reciprocal relationship. Last evening, I was speaking about how much I enjoyed 5 years as being Dean of Law, and the particular privilege for me is I had a chance to get to know 150 young people who came in to learn the law, to join that noble profession each year. And the one privilege I asked as Dean is I'd like to be the first one to greet them on the first day. And I used to speak about their inclusive community to help one another. And I said, you're entering a noble profession. And you're a second-class citizen because you no longer have the rights and freedoms to do everything you want. You have to serve for the improvement of the administration of justice. And there's a distinction between law and justice. And you will graduate with a very rare and precious set of skills, a lawyer. You'll do very well, I'm sure I'll do well. I ask you one thing, that you take 10% of your time when you're in practice and devote that to pro bono work as your duty as a professional. But there's something more. I guarantee you, as much as you enjoy the other 90% of your not pro bono work, and I'm sure all too well, you're going to enjoy that pro bono work even more. I cannot tell you how many times I've been at a function or a gathering of some kind, and a former student comes up and, Dean, you remember that speech you gave first day about the 10%? Well, I haven't done quite 10%. It's been more like 3 or 4%, but I got to tell you, you're right. It's by far the most fulfilling work. While its special bedrock characteristics remain constant, philanthropy, as it is practiced daily in Canada, is changing in several key ways. Let me talk about them. It's becoming more about time and talent, and not merely treasure, although treasure is important. Money remains and will surely always remain a vital component of philanthropy. Yet people are increasingly incorporating their knowledge, skills, and personal commitment into the giving. And I welcome this evolution for many reasons. We must think beyond money alone if we want philanthropy to become a part of the lives of all Canadians. We want to promote the value of time and talent to graft giving into the DNA of every citizen. Last night, Cal, the guy I admire so much, this brilliant man, spoke about a recessive gene, the Good Samaritan gene, Cal, and from his experience, it exists in about 40% of the people who operate in this sphere. And he said our challenge is to take that recessive gene, the Good Samaritan gene, and activate the active gene, which causes that recessive gene to come into operation and to begin to do the help for other people. So what we want to do is the gene within individuals and then the DNA of the nation become a culture of giving. And so the nature in which we work together. At the same time, we're encouraged to use our successes to ensure others profit from the same opportunities we've enjoyed. By tying together economic opportunity and equality of opportunity, philanthropy has served and continues to serve as a bulwark of the Canadian way of life. Philanthropy also has a replenishing and revitalizing effect. We must tap into the finest qualities of our people in our country. We want to incorporate best practices of business. We want to employ the latest technological advances and empower and inspire diverse groups of people, especially new Canadians. And of course, Canada has been generation upon generation of new Canadians. We're all immigrants in one way or another to enrich our lives through our nation. We must take advantage of time and talent to get our children involved in philanthropy and instill in them an understanding of its valuable place in our country, that it's very Canadian. We should recognize that inspiring young people to give generates even greater returns than handing out lifetime achievement awards. We must bring people from disparate places together to improve and accelerate our philanthropic efforts. Let's unleash the power of something I call the diplomacy of knowledge by working across international borders, academic disciplines, and institutional boundaries. People are also transforming philanthropy into an investment vehicle. This gets a little more complex. Men and women throughout the developed world are starting to recognize and take advantage of social finance, micro-lending, community investing, social impact bonds, and social enterprise lending enable social entrepreneurs and their donors to stimulate positive community and environmental benefits while reaping financial returns. The conditions are so ripe for London to be a leader of social finance in Canada. Your city is full of intelligent, ambitious people, home to two of our country's finest institutions of higher learning, and a hub of information technology development and research into biotechnology and life sciences. The conditions of the modern economy are also ripe for a resurgence of philanthropy in Canada. In our new economy, knowledge is a much more valuable asset than physical capital. Small but aggressive firms are gaining ground in large entrenched organizations, and individual entrepreneurs or small groups of visionary business people are driving most of the innovations of our time. The emergence of an entrepreneurial economy is opening up philanthropic activities from new sources. Even more excitingly, new leaders of Canadian philanthropy, fueled by the principles and spirit of entrepreneurship, are poised to emerge. Philanthropy in Canada needs this infusion of fresh ideas and constructive ambition. The most recent statistics on giving in our country show that while many Canadians are generous with their money, too many are not. Only 23% of tax filers claim a charitable deduction on their returns, down from 30% in 1990, from 30 down to 23. Equally troubling, their average age is 53. It's too old for my liking, and the average gift in Canada is less than half that in the United States. These numbers tell me we need a new generation of young, aggressive, compassionate entrepreneurs to come forward and invest their time, talent, and treasure in our country. The great thing about entrepreneurship is that it isn't limited solely to business. Entrepreneurs exist in all walks of life, anywhere people see a product or service or approach and say, I have an idea to do it better. The fertile minds and relentless drive of entrepreneurs are an untapped resource in Canadian philanthropy and a vital force in its future success. Many years ago, the great American benefactor David Rockefeller said, philanthropy is involved with basic innovations that transform society, not simply maintaining the status quo or fulfilling basic social needs that were formerly the province of the public sector. I think his wise words are even truer today. Our entrepreneurs are exactly the kind of people who need to become increasingly involved in philanthropy. I see dozens of budding philanthropists here today. I say don't wait until you retire from your current careers to begin giving. Find ways to start now. As Cal again said last night, discovering the joy of giving is a wonderful, liberating, innovation force. I also see mentors here today, philanthropists with long, impressive track records of success. I see Lorraine Ivy Shuttleworth, Dick Ivy, true treasures of the City of London. Lorraine and Dick are known and respected throughout Canada as among our most generous and effective philanthropists, but may not be as widely known as how they work so closely with the London Community Foundation, leveraging their own resources to raise additional funds, start more programs, and most importantly, get increasingly more people involved in giving. Dick once said that the opportunity to preserve what is good on earth, to support what feeds the soul or stimulates the intellect, to encourage a talent, to save an endangered species, or keep alive the dreams and aspirations of others is not only a privilege, but a sacred responsibility. Lorraine and Dick have fulfilled that sacred responsibility. We Canadians are so much richer for their commitment, intelligence, and generosity. I also see Donna and Bob Moore. Donna and Bob are truly smart and caring Canadians who are improving lives in London and in communities far from home. They rely on the London Community Foundation to make sure that recipient charities are accountable and ensure that their own family's generous contributions have the greatest impact possible. And animating all of their philanthropic activities is a simple yet profound idea. They want their giving to be an example and an inspiration to others, most directly their children, never to forget how fortunate they are and that they must find ways to recognize the good fortune by giving back. As we say in French, pour encourager les autres. Lorraine, Dick, Don, and Bob are eager to share their wisdom. I urge London's emerging philanthropists to take advantage of this deep wellspring of intelligence and guidance. Successful giving isn't easy. As renowned Canadian philanthropist Francis Winspear said, giving money requires even more prescience, more imagination, more executive skill than making it. And I guess that great business executive, Warren Buffett, thought exactly that, and he turned his fortune over to these young people, Bill and Melinda Gates, because he said, I'm pretty good at making money. I'm not sure how good I'm giving it away, but I found a couple of young people that are on the way in their lives too. I encourage the city's young givers to strengthen their ties with the London Community Foundation. This local foundation has set up 3 key initiatives to help make young people make the most of their time, talent, and treasure. And here are the 3. 1, Engage London helps young professionals find their perfect fit for their contributions. 2, Emerging Leaders is a group of up-and-coming philanthropists from a range of backgrounds and experiences who share winning ideas and approaches to spur further successes. And 3, and here's a great name for you, the Red Shoe Society is a network of young philanthropists who raise funds and awareness for the Ronald McDonald House of Southwestern Ontario, a very splendid cause that shelters families of young people who are undergoing lengthy medical treatments in hospitals far from home. So whether you choose to follow one of these paths or strike on another, remember that meaningful opportunities are there for you to seize. And remember from time to time what attorney Albert Pike said about giving, what we have done for ourselves alone dies with us. What we do for others remains and is immortal. So seize your chance, carpe diem, start giving, enter the company of the immortals, and leave as your legacy the smarter, more daring country and world we all hope for and dream of. And let me end with a story that I love to tell. I told it yesterday, I'll tell it again, some of you heard it, about the business of what you do does matter. it's not relatively insignificant. And the story goes this way. Mother Teresa came to Montreal when we were there. She spoke at the Greater Montreal Prayer Breakfast. A group of 50 of us gathered with her afterwards, and one of our friends said to her, Mother Teresa, we're so moved by your work in Calcutta. What can we do? What can we do to help? And I, being a university president of 27 years standing, thought she'd say, write a large check and send it to me in Calcutta. I'll put it to good word. She didn't. She said, look in your own family. Look in your own neighborhood, and I guarantee you that there's someone there that needs your care. After her address, 4 or 5 of the Montreal newspapers covered it in a very flattering way, saying, marvelous woman, probably going to be a saint she was. But one newspaper, taking a different tack, I guess practicing realpolitik, said, great speech, but let's be practical. She helps 200 people in her settlement house in Calcutta. She ensures they're fed, they're sheltered, and of course that helps their lives. Again, in real estate. That's 200 people in a city of 20 million people, over half of whom live in the most dire poverty imaginable. In a country of 1 billion, again, in poverty that you wouldn't believe. What she does is fine, but it's a mere drop in the bucket, a drop in the ocean. And it bothered me for the longest time, that notion of a mere drop in the bucket, drop in the ocean. And one day, we had a birthday party at our home, on the corner of Cheapside and St. George, Charlie Iser's home, with 3 stories and many attics. And my job at birthday parties was to tell ghost stories. And at the end of one of the parties, our oldest daughter came up and said to me, Dad, something to tell you. What is it, dear? You know the ghost stories that you tell the kids? Well, they're all lies. And the kids know they're all lies. And they just pretend to be frightened because they know if they don't, it will hurt your feelings. Why can't you be like Dean McFarlane? He does magic. Well, Dean McFarlane was Andy McFarlane, who was the dean of the School of Journalism, and I was the dean of the law school. And I don't think I'm a particularly competitive guy, but when in the eyes of my children, I went down and get a little competitive. So I went to the McFarlane home the next time it was a birthday party, and lo and behold, there was bloody Andy McFarlane dressed like a magician. Big cape, top hat, wand, mustache twirling like this, and he was prancing around doing these tricks, and the kids were mesmerized. So I got over here where Sly is standing to see what was going on in the sleeves behind the scene. He pulls out a glass of water, and he says, I will turn this water into wine. Well, that careful, Andy. The last time somebody tried that was 2,000 years ago with a little more influence than you have. And then out of his sleeve, I could see, he took a little dropper, an eyedropper, and in it he had a drop of red vegetable dye that he dropped into the glass of water, and then he presented it, and there was the water, the clear water, with this little drop there, and then he says, abracadabra, and he swirled the water, and it suffused into a beautiful shade of rosé. And the light went on in my head. The one drop in the ocean, the one drop in the bucket. I had been looking at that drop of caring from a matter of physics or mathematics, relative volume, when I should have been looking at it as a matter of chemistry. That one drop of red dye transfused all of the other molecules in the grass and changed the culture. And that's what we're doing in Canada.